Hi everyone, this is Ginger with Gingerberry Creek, and today's tutorial is going to be about attaching like items to your primitive doll. Like on this particular pattern, this Frankenstein pattern, you have to attach the bolts to the side of the head. Other patterns, it may be the tail, it may be a horn or something like that. So I wanted to bring you the tutorial on how to do this attaching. So I've already attached one of them to the side of the head, and so I'm going to show you how I do the other one so that you are familiar with that process. Be sure to have your pattern available with you. So here's the pattern for this one, and most of the time it should tell you exactly what to use, and like on this one where the placement of the bolt is, or if you're attaching a horn, it'll tell you, the placement of the horn. And in the actual instructions, it should also kind of give you a breakdown of what to do. So what you'll need to do is, here's my other bolt. What I'm going to do is fold this fabric inward so I have a nice kind of edge to work with. And to do that, I just use a small pair of forceps, and I kind of fold the fabric inward, just kind of like this. Just work with it. It's easier to use these, do this with the forceps, because you can grab just little portions and kind of push them in, grab it, push it down. So as you can see, I've folded in. Now, read your pattern and follow what your pattern tells you. It may not tell you to fold over the edge. It may just tell you to sew it down. So be sure to follow the instruction part of your pattern. So there, I've folded in that edge a little bit, so I have a nice folded edge to work with when I'm sewing. So it's ready now. Now, what you do is you look at your pattern and you see where the placement is. I know that my placement is going to be along this seam, and it's going to be a little bit down from the hair up here that I have primitively stitched. So, and you also kind of need to keep an eye over on this side. If you've already attached one of them, you kind of want them to make sure that they're even. So I do this, and I make sure, and the other thing I make sure is when I'm doing it is that this seam kind of lines up with the seam along the side here. So once I have those in place and I have them where I want them, then I'm gonna put a couple of pins just to hold it in place on the front and the back here while I get my other stuff ready. So, and then that way I can, without having to hold it, I can make sure that it looks good, and it does. Make sure that it's lined up correctly with the line of my body here. So then I'm going to use some matching thread. Now this thread is the gray. It matches the gray bolt. So use a matching thread to whatever you're attaching. That way when we sew it, it kind of hides their hidden stitches. So make sure you're using a matching thread. I've already threaded this onto my needle, and I've knotted the end. Now, I do leave a long thread tail when I go into the fabric, but I just like to put a knot to keep it nice and straight and not having the ends kind of want to twist up and wrap around. So I've got this ready. What I'm going to do is flip my item over here, my little Frankenstein, and I'm going to find a place to go in at. Now on your pattern, Sometimes they'll tell you to go in at the seam here, or someplace. There may be a sewn slit back here that you can go into and go over to that. So just follow the instructions. On this particular one, I'm going to go in around this, where this stitching is, so that I can kind of hide it amongst this stitching right here. So I'm going to insert my needle here, and then I'm going to push it over and catch part of this bolt. Just work with it until you get it. There we go. So it's right there is my needle. So I've caught the bottom part of that bolt. I'm going to leave these pins in for a little bit while I take a few stitches. Now I'm going to pull that, and then I'm going to flip this back over, straighten out my thread because sometimes it likes to bunch up. I'm going to straighten that out, and I'm going to leave a long thread tail because then I'm going to, when I finish up and knot off, I'm going to hide those underneath the fabric. So I'm going to leave that thread tail, and then I'm going to flip this back over. And now it's at the bolt, so now I'm going to kind of push my needle kind of under that bolt, but catch the fabric of the body. And now I'm going to push over to another section, and I'm going to come back here. I'm not going to go in a, like, stitch around evenly. I'm going to go back and forth. It's easier to do it that way. So here's my needle. I'm going to pull that thread now, and I'm going to hang on to this thread back here just to make sure that it doesn't pull in, and then I don't have my thread tail. So so now we're here. So now I'm gonna and you do have to move this piece around, your piece around quite a bit to do what you need to do. So now I'm gonna go back into the body fabric here and slightly at an angle kind of underneath this bolt. Okay, and then I'm going to push over to another section, like the front part here. I'm going to push over to the bolt slightly above there. There it is. I'm going to pull the thread. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight. So there it is right there. Now I'm going to go back into my body here, and then I'm going to push over to another. So here it is right there. I'm going to push over to the back part here and catch another little section, and then pull my thread. Oops, see, I pulled too tight. So if you do that, just pull the thread back and make sure you keep that thread tail. So now I'm going to go back in. So it's kind of like a whip stitch, but I'm not going in order. I'm just going back and forth until I have all of it stitched down and I'm happy with the placement. So there's my thread again. I'm going to go back in, flip it over, push until I come out in another little area. There we go, right there. I'm going to pull, kind of tug on it, make sure it's nice and tight. At this point, I've stitched down quite a bit of it, so I'm going to go ahead and pull these pins out. So it should be on its own, and this way I can see now a little better of where I want to go with my next stitch. So here's where I'm at. I'm going to go in here to the head or the body. I'm going to look and see. I want to come out down here at this bottom because I haven't stitched down here yet. There it is right there. I'm going to push my needle and then pull my thread. So now, oops, it's wrapped around. Let me unwrap that there. Alright, so now I need to go, I think I need to I need to attach up here. So this time I'm going to go in down here and I'm going to come out. There we go. It's hard to see, but there's my needle right there at the top. I'm going to pull my thread. You have to move the piece around quite a bit to get all of it done, but don't worry about going in any particular order. Just go back and forth, you know, front to back or top to bottom until you have all of it sewn down. It's much easier to do it that way than to try to go in order, you know, to stitch in order around it. Alright, so I think I'm about done here. I'm going to take this stitch and then I'm going to do one last stitch up here. So I'm going to go in here at the bottom and I'm going to come up. I want to see, okay, where I need to be. I think I need one right about, sorry about that, right about here. So I'm going to push my needle over. Oops, too high. You don't want them too high up there. So there it is right there. Pull that. Okay. Ooh, sorry. Alright. So now this is my last stitch. So I'm going to go into the fabric and then I'm coming out over here next to this long thread tail. So I'm going to go into the fabric. And then I'm going to come out over here and I'm going to try to come out right next to that thread tail. And pull that nice and tight. And now what you're going to do is you're going to knot these threads together. So there's one knot, and I always double knot just to make sure it's nice and secure. There's my second knot. Now I'm going to clip below this knot right here that I made to keep my threads nice and straight. I'm going to set that off to the side. I'm going to have another needle. And now I'm going to thread these ends here onto this needle. There we go. Okay, so then it looks like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right into where those knots were that I made. And then I'm just going to push off to the side and pull it through. Give a little tug. Sometimes the little knot will snap up underneath the fabric and pull on it a little. Hold these nice and tight and then clip. Be careful not to cut your fabric. You'll cut a hole in it. And then we're done with that. So now these are attached to the head. There they are. So that's how you attach like a horn or like these bolts, or if you're attaching a tail, that would be how you would attach it unless the instructions tell you otherwise. But that's how I do it. So I hope that this tutorial has been helpful and that you've learned now how to attach those pieces. And be sure to, now there will be another tutorial on attaching the head to a body. So that is a separate video. Be sure to check that one out when it's put out. So that's different than how I attach here these pieces. So be sure to catch that video, that tutorial, and stay tuned for other tutorials. And I hope this has been helpful, and thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.